Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some PathOfExile discussion. A couple of months ago, players cracked the formula on how mythic orbs worked. I was part of a collaborative effort that did that, and we published our findings, and I considered it to be the biggest secret about PathOfExile that players had cracked in 2023 so far. Emphasis on so far. The player base has done something a little bit bigger now. Almost the entirety of unique item tiering has been reverse engineered through a couple of key discoveries about the way that the little used ritual mechanic works. If you've heard about a unique item tier spreadsheet that's being circulated around players, this is where it comes from. Let's dig into this discovery, what it is, and how it was all worked out. Firstly though, the vast majority of sponsorship offers that I get are complete and utter rubbish. They mostly come from a market-leading mobile game, you know the one, PathOfExile cheat sites, and hard to cancel online subscriptions. I turn all of these down. This video is sponsored by a company that has a good product that is a one-time purchase and one that I'm wearing right now. We stare at screens a huge amount these days, and the light that comes off them can overstimulate our eyes and keep us awake late at night. Link in the description to some medical research. It's actually the blue light that's the problem here. The responsible adult solution is simply to stop gaming at 9 o'clock. But those divine orbs aren't going to farm themselves. No one calls me a responsible adult, so I'll continue gaming at night, and I'll wear blue light glasses to mitigate the effect. GMG Performance is sponsoring this video. They provided me with 3 of their models to test out. There's the Performer glasses, which I'm wearing now. These are my favorite. They block about 60% of blue light. And they also offer the Optimizer, the Aranos, and also the Osiris, which I don't have one of to model. GMG usually charge $80 US, but for their Black Friday sale, which will go for about 4 days after this video goes live, if you let them know I sent you by clicking the link down in the description below, we can get you $30 off that. The 2 things that have improved the most since I've had these glasses have been my ability to sleep after late night mapping sessions, playing builds with bright explosions everywhere, and also a decrease in eye strain when I'm editing videos. I'd have no buyer's remorse if I paid full price for my set, but at $49.90 they're even better, so get in fast to save that $30 for yourself. And now to change the topic completely, let's get back to PathOfExile and the 6 unique rarity tiers and how players worked out there's exactly 6 of them. For a long time, the PathOfExile player base thought that there were 4 rarity tiers, and then a 5th one that was added in patch 3.14. That tier that was added in 3.14 was where Headhunter went, after its ties to the Nemesis League flag were removed. Now, we were actually wrong at this point. There was an additional tier rarer than we realised, and this is where all of the Pantheon uniques, Sin's Rebirth, Garakan's Flight, and a number of other items were in this rarer tier than we believed existed. These were meaningfully rarer than Chevron's Wrappings, meaningfully rarer than Mjolnir, and other items that people thought were the rarest tier before patch 3.14. The 6 tier model was proven to be the case in patch 3.14 because of Inscribed Ultimatums. These only existed in Ultimatum League. They were sort of a map-like object where you had to wager a particular item and you would receive back a different item if you completed the challenge that was posed by the ultimatum. Some of them required you to sacrifice a unique item in order to get a chance to compete for a different unique item. Fishwife analysed these ones, specifically looking at ones that awarded Reefbane, which has since been confirmed to be a tier 0 drop anywhere unique, and that started the 3.14 tiering system. Essentially, each of these ultimatums either allowed you to sacrifice a tier 4 unique to get back a tier 3, a tier 3 to get back a tier 2, a tier 2 to get a tier 1, or a tier 1 to get a tier 0. And tier 5 uniques did not interact with this system in any way, which meant that it was pretty easy to work out exactly what tier any particular item was in. Now, many items have changed rarity tiers since patch 3.14. For example, Beric's Respite has shifted from tier 1 down to tier 3, and so has Asenath's Gentle Touch. At the same time, a number of items that were gigabuffed in patches 3.19 and 3.20 were shifted from relatively low rarity tiers up to being very, very rare. For example, Soul Taker used to be tier 2 and is now tier 0, Beano's Kitchen Knife is now tier 0, and the Covenant is probably tier 1. When I'm thinking about these 6 tiers and explaining them to people, I usually split them up into 4 overarching tiers. This is what I term the common tier, tiers 4 and 5. Tier 4 includes Chevron's Pace, tier 5 includes Goldrum. These are the items that drop all the time for you. Actually, the individual items can still be pretty rare. You might go a while without seeing a Goldrum, but there are hundreds of uniques in these tiers, and as a result, you're going to get one of them every map, but probably not the one you're looking for. Tier 3 uniques, which include Cold Iron Point, are what I term uncommon items. These are quite a bit rarer than the common items, but they're also a lot more common than the tiers that come later. Tiers 2 and 1 are pretty close to each other in rarity, and I term these the rare items. The 4th Vow is a good example here, that's tier 2. Arakali's Fang is tier 1. These are items that take pretty determined farming to get in solo self-found, whether you try to farm them through divination cards, or whether you try to get them as a natural monster drop. And then we have the tier 0 items, which are staggeringly rare. Headhunter, Mageblood, the vast majority of people in a league, even if they play a lot, will not have one of these items directly drop for them. Now note that desirability and rarity are not necessarily the same thing, nor is item power and rarity. So Heat Shiver is a very good item, it's tier 3, whereas Essentia Sanguis sees very little use and it is tier 0. Now we don't exactly know the relative rarity of each tier. From players who farmed 23,872 uniques and meticulously tracked every single one of them, they got an average of the following. About a quarter of each tier 0, so they got exactly 3 tier 0s between the 13 of them, 1.5 of each tier 1, 4.1 of each tier 2, 9.9 of each tier 3, 53 of each tier 4, and 71 of each tier 5. But note there were some pretty big outliers here. For instance, they didn't get 71 Chevron's Paces, they got 96 of that item. Not much can be said about tier 0 rarity here because they only got 3 items, so it could have been that they were expected to get 1 and they got very lucky, or they could have been expected to get 6 and they got quite unlucky. They did, however, get a direct drop of a Mageblood. So what's a connection to Ritual? What's the new discovery? Ritual as a mechanic was incredibly strong in patch 3.14, that was the Ultimatum League, and it has never been good again since. It's got a very complex internal reward tiering, which players had never really researched until now. But in patch 3.14, for that short moment of time, it was the best source of Mirror of Kalandra drops the game had ever seen. I've spoken to streamers that have had 2 Mirrors of Kalandra drop in a league, and they consider that extraordinary. There was a player in patch 3.14, however, who got 7 Mirrors of Kalandra, all of them from Ritual. Now something a number of people have realised is that Ritual never puts a low tribute cost on an incredibly rare item. So if you get a Headhunter in Ritual, it's always going to be 5-figure tribute, or at least very high 4 figures. The same is the case for Mirrors of Kalandra. The same is the case for large stacks of rare currency. So this stack of 4 Exalted Orbs here, that is going to be something like 10,000 plus tribute. On the flip side, you never see high tribute costs on things that are much more mundane, like a Polished Scarab. The thing that got me personally thinking about Ritual, although I wasn't the start of seriously analysing it, I noticed that I was getting 2 implicit synthesized items modestly common from Ritual, and always these cost about 6,000 tribute. Never massively more, never massively less. Now 2 implicit synthesized items are mostly trash, but a small minority of them are very, very, very valuable. And as a result, they're one of those things that I had my eye on when I was thinking, do I want to try and go hard on Ritual 1 League? Because if you get really lucky and you get +1 maximum charge, then that can be worth multiple mirror shards. But the truly unique discovery was when people took some of these insights and applied them to unique items instead, and then ran them against a list of uniques that have been pulled from 23,872 unique items that have been farmed in maps. Ritual, it turns out, has 6 tiers of pricing in tribute. These have been discovered by a community effort that have collectively run literally tens of thousands of maps, while either recording all Ritual items or at least recording ones that players felt were remarkable. Now these tiers are not exactly the same as uniques, so when I say tier 1 Ritual tier rewards, that's not exactly the same as a tier 1 drop anywhere unique, but there's a lot of overlap here. So tier 1 rewards in Ritual, these are staggeringly rare, they have a tribute cost that is at least 7,950, and the tribute cost will always be a multiple of 150. And a quick note from Editing Gog here, for clarification, this is the first time the item appears. If you elect to defer an item, then it's going to come back at a different price as a result of the deferral. We're only talking about the very first time that it shows up. Tier 2 rewards are extremely rare, and they have a tribute cost between 3,960 and 7,900, and they'll always be multiples of 60 within that range. Tier 3, these are rare, and they have a tribute cost between 1,960 and 3,950, and they'll be multiples of 28. Tier 4, 1050 to 1950, multiples of 15. Tier 5, these are very common now, 560 to 1040, and they'll be multiples of 8. And Tier 6 rewards are even lower than that. Most of the Tier 6 stuff will just be badly rolled rares. And the big breakthrough was the discovery that the correlation between Ritual reward tiers and unique item tiers is pretty simple. Excluding a couple of special uniques that aren't things that can drop everywhere in the game, if a unique is found in Ritual at a reward tier, that is the tier of the unique, unless that unique is tier 0, in which case it'll come up as a tier 1 Ritual reward. What this means for tier 6 Ritual rewards is that they just can't have uniques in them at all. A quick case study, Darkscorn. Here I present a screenshot of Darkscorn in a Ritual window. You'll notice it has a price of 6,180 tribute. This is a tier 2 reward. That means that Darkscorn is a tier 2 drop anywhere unique. Really simple one, all it took was a screenshot. And of course, someone finding Darkscorn in a Ritual. There's a couple of things you want to watch for that can trip you up here. This here Soul Tether has a cost of 0 tribute. The reason for this is an Atlas proc that causes an item to be free. This belt is tier 3 rarity, but this screenshot does nothing to help prove that. This is about a 1% proc when you reroll tribute, so it's not something you're going to see very often. The other thing you want to watch for is Vaal rituals and also the Atlas Keystone Arbitrary Tenets. You do not want to be using Arbitrary Tenets if you're trying to work out unique item tiers with ritual, because it will crangle the prices. Vaal rituals do exactly the same thing. Vaal rituals kind of stand out though because they have Atziri's projection attacking you while you're running the ritual, so they're pretty much impossible to miss. They also drop a lot of corrupted loot when you beat them. Vaal rituals are also very, very rare. You are not going to see these often. These Vaal rituals and Arbitrary Tenets will remove your ability to work out ritual tiers even from a screenshot of tribute cost, and thus to work out the tier of a unique item. So from thousands of maps, if you have a full ritual atlas and you aggressively spend tribute on rerolls, you can expect that you'll see about 1 tier 2 ritual reward per map on average, but this is almost never going to be a unique item. You get slightly more than this if you use blood-filled vessels, but it's been my experience, I think blood-filled vessels are broken at the moment. I don't think they work the way they're meant to. Vessels have a line of text on them that reads 20% improved rewards. This is almost not available anywhere else in the game, but I don't believe it does anything in ritual. The reason for this is that there's been some tracking done where people have done 4 blood-filled vessels and also run other rituals with no blood-filled vessels, and their finding has been that the same ratio of tier 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 rewards seems to hold, so it doesn't seem like there's any biasing towards better rewards. What we can't rule out though is that the blood-filled vessels might work to bias you towards getting rarer rewards. For example, tier 2 drop anywhere uniques and also mortal fragments are both things that you can get in tier 2 ritual rewards, and the mortal fragments are much more common than the tier 2 drop anywhere uniques. It may be that the 20% improved rewards text does not help you to get a tier 2 reward, but once you've got one, it may reduce the intensity of this bias towards mortal fragments. That's something that still needs to be tested. Tier 1 rewards seem to be 100 times rarer, and we'll get to what that is when we look at what they contain. Tier 1s contain no filler, whereas Tier 2 contains a lot of filler. What can you get in Tier 1 rewards? You can get any Tier 0 drop anywhere unique, for example Mage Blood, Essentia Sanguis, Beano's Kitchen Knife, Calandra's Touch. You can also get any Tier 1 drop anywhere unique, for example Arakali's Fang, Doriani's Prototype, and probably the Covenant, although I need to verify that that is Tier 1 and not Tier 2. You can get quite rare divination cards. When I say quite rare, it seems like the cutoff between Tier 1 and Tier 2 is about the nurse in rarity. So that's not the nurse in value, that's the nurse in rarity. For example, Further Invention is a divination card that is much rarer than the nurse, but considerably less desirable, and as a result, it would be a Tier 1 reward if you get it. Now, if you're in a high tier map and you roll a divination card this way, it will not just give you 1 of that card, it will give you a stack of 2 to 3 of that card. Lower tier maps it seems to be 1 to 2, and I'm not sure where the cutoff is. You can also get stacks of about 4 of a rare currency item, so this can be a Divine Orb, an Exalted Orb, or an Orb of Annulment, with Orbs of Annulment seeming to be considerably rarer than the other 2. You can get a Mirror of Calandra, you can get a Mirror Shard, and remember that Tier 1 rewards are very rare, and within them they're weighted as well. If you do see one, it is much more likely to be a divination card than anything else. And if it's not a divination card, it's probably either a Tier 1 drop anywhere unique or a stack of 4 currency, rather than a mirror shard, or a Tier 0 unique. Tier 2 rewards have a lot more filler in them. You can get Tier 2 drop anywhere uniques like Chevron's Wrappings. You can get divination cards roughly between the patient and the nurse in rarity. Now I know the patient is actually in Tier 3, so the cutoff is a little bit more common than the patient, but we don't know exactly where that cutoff is. You can get stacks of 10 of an uncommon currency, so Chaos Orbs, Regal Orbs, Scouring Orbs. You can get just 1 of a rare currency, 1 Divine, 1 Exalt, 1 Annul. You can get a 6-linked rare item. You can get 2 implicit synthesized items. You can get 2120 gems. You can get level 1 exceptional gems like Empower. You can get Prime Resonators. You can get a few specific uniques that aren't drop anywhere, synthesized maps, ritual uniques and the like, and you will get lots and lots of mortal fragments. In a private league that I ran recently, I organised a group of players to farm up a whole bunch of Tier 2 rewards, and from 175 of these, we got 113 Mortal Fragments. Of these, Mortal Hope is definitely the rarest. Mortal Ignorance comes second, and we got 17 of those. You'll notice that Ignorance is the most valuable of these, and that's because there's a divination card for Mortal Hope. We got 21 of the stacks of currency, so this is the Scouring Orb and Chaos Orb tier. We got 13 stacks of 2 to 3 divination cards. We got 10 of the rare currencies, 5 divines, 3 exalts, and 2 annuls. We got 7 2 implicit synthesized items. It's actually not bad. That's about 1 per 25 tier 2 rewards. You get about 1 tier 2 reward for every map that you run that has rituals in it. So this is not a bad source of 2 implicit synthesized items at all. We got 3 gems, 2 of them were 2120s and 1 was an Empower. We got 3 6-link rares, 1 prime resonator, 1 synthesized map, 1 ritual unique, and 2 drop anywhere tier 2 uniques. And I asked people to screenshot these whether they were taking them from the ritual or not. So for instance, most people didn't actually take the mortal fragments that they rolled up, but if ritual offered them, they were still screenshotted anyway. In other words, it is not quick to get solid proof of the tier of a unique item because you need to find it in a ritual. That said, this is certainly a lot easier than farming literally tens and tens of thousands of unique items as you would need to do in order to just empirically tier these uniques. Tier 3 rewards have a lot more. There's drop anywhere uniques that are tier 3 like Heat Shiver. There's a lot more divination cards. The Fortunate and the Patient are the ones you probably care about. And again, you get a stack of 2 to 3 of them, but most of the time you're going to get something you're not that interested in. You can get large stacks of rogue markers, you can get gilded scarabs, and most of the rest of the tier 3 and lower rewards are kind of trash. There's a reason ritual's not a very popular mechanic to run. So using this new tech, almost every unique items tier has been worked out by now. The one really high profile unique that we're still looking for is Aegis Aurora. We know that it is tier 1 or tier 2. We don't know which of the two it is. If you can manage to get yourself an Aegis Aurora to show up in a non-Vaal ritual without arbitrary tenets allocated on your atlas, please screen grab it and let me know about it. It's the last of these high profile uniques we're trying to work out, although there are a few other holes to fill in still. That said, almost everything is now solved. Now, some of the team behind the new PathOfExile wiki have been working on adding ritual confirmation to the tiers that were estimated by that group that farmed 23,872 uniques at the end of last league. If you want to be a part of that effort, then Poor Fishwife's Discord, which is called Prohibited Library, that's where it's being organised. It's not hard to find that Discord. It's not my baby to invite you to, but at the moment you'll find a link to it pretty easily with a Google search for Prohibited Library PathOfExile Discord. If you just want a summary though, I've reformatted the main findings and I'll put a link to that down in the description below. So what we've got here is not only an almost complete listing of all of the tiers of unique items in the game, but more importantly perhaps, we've got something that every time Grinding Gear Games decide to shuffle around unique rarity tiers, we've got a methodology that can be used to then go and refine those uniques and re-verify them. It's still a lot of effort to find tier 2 and especially tier 1 rarity uniques in rituals, and Ritual can't tell the difference between tier 0 and tier 1 rarity, but it's the best thing we've had since patch 3.14, and unlike the 3.14 ultimatum method, it's something that's likely to continue working into the future. I'm going to leave it there. May your Vaal rituals have interesting results.